Hey everyone, Jay from Whole Route here. I'm finally ready to start making videos for non-emergency medical transportation. So we're going to be doing about 2 to 3 videos every single week from here on out, where we'll cover virtually everything you'll ever need to know about making money in the NEMT industry. I think these videos are going to be awesome because they'll be good for new providers, those that are interested in getting into the business and not sure if they should, as well as existing companies. You're going to learn quite a bit because we have a lot of experience. Just so this is our setting, I've decided on a vehicle just because of the fact that, well, it's a transportation industry. It also seems like the norm, and it's in contrast to the cheesy video you might have seen on my website, our little promo video. So without further ado, I wanted to make the first video related to the most common question that I see on Facebook and on YouTube, which is, how should I start? Should it be with the broker? Should it be with private pay? Where should I go? Okay. Firstly, my take is that this is not an either or question at all. But before we go too deep into that, I want to just take one step back and start from the foundation here, especially if you're a new company. You have to understand, we got 500 providers that register for Medicaid every single month, and 70% of new companies are out of business in this industry in their first year. And there are two main reasons why. So the first half of this video is going to be related to the first reason, and then we'll touch on the second reason in the second half of this video. The first reason why providers fail is because they get started with something I call the employee mindset, and it's in contrast to the ownership mindset. And it may seem elementary, but it's really not. So I advise you take notes here because it's really important. A lot of providers come in and they have experience maybe in Uber, so they see NEMT as the same thing where I'll just apply with a broker, and that's it. I'll get accepted and I'll start taking trips, right? That's the worst mistake that you can make getting into this industry, and is one of the really only two reasons why providers fail. So to get started, we'll start with brokers now, and then we'll transition to private pay after that. I want to give you a little bit of information, especially if you're new. So a lot of providers come in expecting that they just need to apply with a broker and they're going to get the contract. First of all, half of the providers that apply with brokers don't actually ever obtain a contract. What you have to understand is that when you apply with to work with a broker, right? You're one of potentially 2 or 3 or 4 providers in your locality that are applying at the same time, where the broker is actually only in need of 1 provider. Secondly, when you start, you're not going to be making 50 trips per day from day one, except in exceptional circumstances, which is maybe 1% of the time, where you're applying in an area where an established provider just went out of business and there's a huge vacuum to fill. But more often than not, you're only starting with 1 or 2, maybe 3 trips per day, and you have little to no control over your trip volume. Now, you may get started with 10 or 15 or 20 trips per day, and what happens most of the time is that within a week or two drops down to 1 or 2 trips a day. And a lot of providers don't know why, and I wanted to explain why, because it's important for you to know how brokers work. So this comes from a story of a provider that I worked with in Tennessee who did get started with a broker, 20 trips a day, and they tanked down. They called me and said, Jay, I don't know what's going on. Out of nowhere, I'm getting like 1 or 2 trips a day, and I don't know why. This is what happens when this happens to you, right? So let's say you get 20 trips a day. Those people you're transporting were being transported by other providers already. So let's take provider XYZ, who is your competitor, who's an established provider, operating for 10 years, has 15 vehicles, and they've been transporting Mary to her dialysis treatment 3 times per week for the past 4 years. One day, they do not see Mary on their trip log. So they call the broker and they say, hey, where's Mary? Now, really, the broker gave Mary to you, the new provider. So they say, hey, listen, you got to give Mary back to me, or I can't transport in that city at all anymore because it's just not worth it for me to go over there. Here's the problem. There may be a lot of trips in that area where you as a new provider with maybe 1 or 2 vehicles are not going to be able to accommodate those trips. Secondly, the broker agents don't want to destroy a very well-established relationship they have with the provider that holds a significant amount of market share and they know is reliable, whereas they don't exactly know if you're reliable. So more often than not, what happens and why providers get stuck into a position where they can't get more than a handful of trips is simply because of the politics on the back end and the relationships between existing providers and broker agents. And that can be difficult to overcome. So you don't make the best rates because you don't make the best money in NEMT with brokers, because a significant portion is taken by the broker. Also, your trip volume is relatively low. There are ways that you can control your trip volume to some extent. For the most part, you have little to no control, but there's really one main way where you can control that trip volume, which I'm going to get into in the second half of the video. But just to recap brokers, and then I'll get into private pay. Don't only rely on the broker, because you're really starting off with an employee mindset, which is the biggest mistake you'll make getting into this industry. Okay. Secondly, you have a lack of security when you only apply with a broker. The reason why is because I can't tell you how many times I've seen established providers who are on top of the world, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years in business, out of nowhere lose their contract for the dumbest reasons. Literally just illegitimate member complaints, or over time the broker starts contracting new providers at lower and lower and lower rates and just stops working with the provider who's more expensive to work with. The problem with that is if you're established now with 7 or 8 or 9 vehicles, your expenses are probably $60,000, $70,000 per month, and you lose your broker contract, you're out of business in the same day. So you don't have security when you have an employee mindset and you only look at one contractor, okay? In contrast, private pay offers you tremendous security. Let's imagine you have 15 contracts with 15 different healthcare facilities. One healthcare facility doesn't want to work with you anymore. That's fine, because you have 14 other facilities you're still working with. So it's very, very important to divest your business. Without that, you're in trouble. The other thing about private pay is you just make so much more money. You make 2 to 3 times more money, primarily due to the fact that you make 100% of what's actually paid out. So I say that you should do both. And the main reason is because applying with a broker is primarily just an administrative task, like applying for a job. You as a business owner, your primary goal is to ensure your business's growth. So in that meantime, you should be growing your business. You should be controlling or taking control of what you can as you wait. And I can't tell you how many providers get started on private pay and then never end up working with the broker. The broker will come back, circle back with low rates, and the provider will say, I don't need to work with you. I'm making enough already, and I'm making way more than you would pay me. So regardless, though, I say go for both. Now, if you go for both or you go for one, whether you go for brokers or private pay, we need to now touch on the second most common reasons why providers fail, which is the lack of preparation, okay? I'll start it with an analogy that I love, which is starting a business is identical to running a marathon, okay? So hear me out, okay? If you're going to go for a marathon, right, you have to have preparation. You need to have a good night's sleep. You need to eat breakfast in the morning. Otherwise, you will face exhaustion halfway through the race. You won't be able to continue. Your competitors will outpace you significantly, and you will lose. Okay? It's exactly the same when you're starting your business. If you're not prepared from the beginning, you'll face 6 to 12 months down the road what's known as financial exhaustion. And a lot of providers think that won't happen. In relativity, it's hard to really perceive your position in the future. And so you'll be thinking, well, I know I should be doing these things now, but I don't want to be tight for cash. I'll be able to do it later. Here's the problem with that. Your expenses are very high in this industry. You're talking about $800 to $1,000 on fuel. You're talking about at least $1,000 on insurance. If you hire someone, a driver from the beginning, that's another $4,000, $5,000, or $6,000. Hopefully you're driving yourself. But there are a lot of expenses in this industry. Every day that you're not specifically profiting, you'll have less savings. You're losing money. And it takes quite a while, especially if you only start with a broker. It can be 6 months to a year before you really are at a net profit, right? So there are so many times that I've seen where providers will say, well, I'll worry about this later. And then 6 to 12 months later, they say, oh man, I should have set this up. I should have done this. And they can't. They're financially incapable of doing it at that time. it's very important in your preparation, and your preparation really is your sales and marketing, right? It's your presentation of your business. That's actually all there is to it, okay? But it's very important to keep in mind, you can't let fear or being tight on money or doubts stop you from anything that deep down you know you should be doing. If you allow that to stop you, you won't succeed in business. I promise you, from 10,000 providers, I can guarantee you, you won't succeed in business if you allow fear to drive why you do or do not do things, okay? So it may be tough, it may be scary in the beginning, and that's why I always say, before you even determine, these things, you have to determine first, are you definitely getting into this industry? And I would strongly recommend it. Transportation is a huge industry. Right now, we have the highest rate of repossessed vehicles that we've ever seen in the country before. It's only growing, and it's only going to continue to grow. So it's a tremendous industry. It's a recession-proof industry. You really won't fail if you apply yourself correctly. And what you need to do is prepare your business's sales and marketing campaign. And what do I mean by that? Your website is really the core of this, but there's a lot more to it. But I want to start with that because it's very important. Let's say you're opening up a convenience store, just a brick and mortar physical location, okay? You're going to need a sign in the front, right? You can't fathom starting, launching your gas station or pizza place, whatever, without a sign, right? That wouldn't make any sense because people would just see a building, they wouldn't know what it is, they wouldn't walk into it. You're even more disadvantaged for your transportation company because you don't even have a building, right? Your website is so unbelievably important for two reasons. One, so that people can find you, but two, when you reach out to clients, they want to verify your company. And I've learned that from personal experience. When we first started, we didn't know what we were doing. We had a website, you could call it, but really we had no online presence. And I'll never forget making phone calls, and I remember a provider told me, call me back when you have some reviews. You have to be trustworthy, and that's going to be very important in terms of private pay. Healthcare facilities are relatively traumatized by dealing with transportation providers that can't handle trip volume, that don't offer consistent pricing, and just really can't overall honor their commitments or offer quality service. Most of the time, you'll see a correlation with providers like that also do not have any established online presence. Remember, you're selling your company. This is your sign. This is your storefront, and it is what identifies you and your company to potential clients, not just with private pay, but also with the broker. What you'll see is that half the providers out there are actually requiring you have a website. Those that don't require the website shouldn't give you ease that you don't need a website. The fact that half of them require a website tells you how important it actually is. In fact, a lot of brokers are now offering driver employment programs because they know most providers don't know how to set themselves up or are unwilling to set themselves up as an actual independent business. They know that most providers will only rely on the broker for trips, and that won't actually work out for them. So alternatively, they'll offer you an hourly wage to be employed by them. That's actually what's happening now. You don't want that to happen. Again, when you're applying with your broker, you're filling out an application, and a lot of the time you're in competition with providers that are very well established. Why would the broker choose you over 2 or 3 or 4 other providers that are applying that may be very well established, right? Same thing with private pay. You're walking into a $50 million healthcare organization that has an incredible identity that is established both in the physical world and the digital world. They use software for everything, and then you walk in and you're just a guy or a girl in a car, and that's really how they're going to see it, right? You need to set yourself up as a $1 million business. You have to be able to do that. And I would recommend, if you don't see the importance of it, consider yourself as a person who needs transportation. Just go on Google and look up non-emergency medical transportation and look at what's out there, right? When you look at a company that has no reviews, no website, there's nothing there. And then you look at the next 3 that all have great reviews. They have a website, click to call, book here, all that stuff going on. And you need a trip, who are you going to go with? You're not even going to consider that first provider, right? I promise you that it is so important to establish an online identity for credibility If you don't, you literally will not be able to make money in the industry or as a business, in any business you do really at all. So just to recap, I would say, broker or private pay. The broker is really administrative task, and then you should put all your focus into what you can control, which is marketing and selling your services outside of that. Under that and before that is going to be the preparation of your business. If you can set up a great presence for your company, the rest comes so easily, it's unbelievable. I will plug our services just because we do the best. So with our website design, we do only custom design. We only do the NEMT industry, and we can actually make you look like $1 million business, even if you have no idea what to say. What I will say is, because I don't want to, I don't like, cheesy marketing, so I'll actually give you options here. They're the only other company that I've ever seen that does healthcare related websites that seem pretty good is a company called ProWeaver. Relatively similar pricing. I think we do a little bit better of a job because we specifically focus on NEMT itself. We're also local in the United States, so I personally think that makes a big difference. So you have more direct contact with us. Again, either way, I don't want this to just be a plug. Whether you get that set up with us or you don't, you need to get it set up. Don't fall for a $300 website deal, right? I'm telling you, a bad website is worse than no website, and the reason why is because no website you fail, but with a bad website you fail and you spend money failing as well. Go on to any website out there that has broken links. It's in just a one page with no content. If you were the customer, would you think that that company really has any infrastructure at all? Would you think that that company cares about their services? So you have to look from the customer's point of view. And I know it's not easy, but financially, it's always a risk. So 3 steps we'll end with, right? Number 1, be 100% sure that you're actually getting into this industry, right? Be 100% sure that you're getting into the industry. Number 2, take ownership of your business, right? That's going to involve investing in your company now, because if you don't, you're walking into the lion's den that you won't be able to succeed in. If you do set yourself up for success, the 3rd step, which is divest your business opportunities with the broker and private pay and other opportunities, which we'll touch on in subsequent videos, it will be so easy you won't believe it. Okay, so hopefully that helped. If you guys have specific questions, put comments down. And if there are a lot of likes on certain comments, I'll post videos. So that way I want to post videos that are very relevant to a lot of providers. If you ask a question that no one else is liking, it is a good question, I'll just shoot you a message. I do want to just provide one last note here. I don't offer consulting or mentorship services, and you won't need it, because you're going to learn everything absolutely for free on these videos. I personally don't see the point of mentorship. A lot of people offer that for thousands of dollars, and half of them offering it failed in business themselves. And I mean, how much can you know in that case? I don't want to trash anyone, but I really don't want you to waste your money spending thousands of dollars just for general, feel-good conversations here and there. There are probably good services out there, but it is relatively expensive, and I don't think you're going to need it. If you stick with the videos, you ask me questions, I'll be able to answer them, and we can help you move forward in the industry and start making money. You can't fail in this industry if you apply yourself the right way. So hit everything you can, prepare your business the right way, and make sure you take ownership of your company. Don't look at it as you are the business. You have limitations. Not everyone's going to like you. And I know that's funny to say, but it's just true. You need to brand your company. It's not taboo. Again, imagine a brick and mortar location without a sign. This is literally worse than that if you don't set yourself up. Website's only one part of it. There's quite a bit to marketing. There's a lot of physical and digital marketing. You need to put yourself in online directories and search engines and so on. But, if you actually want to know more about that, let me know. And thank you so much, guys. I hope you liked the video. We'll be posting pretty frequently from here. So have a good one. Good luck in the NEMT industry. And I love you all.